Here's a little video I've been meaning to do for quite some time. Stuck for ideas for Christmas gifts for your boozy pals. I'm going to do my 12 beery books of Christmas. Probably haven't got the best lighting for this because I'm going to probably overshadow it a little bit. I'm going to do this particular 12 beer books of Christmas in several series. The first is I'm going to run through the 12. I'm going to put links underneath if you want to buy them as gifts or if you find them interesting. And then for the 12 days of Christmas, I'm going to open my advent calendar from Harrison's Brewery, have a beer, talk you through each book in turn. So first of all, let's bang through the 12. In number 12, John Palmer's How to Brew. This is the #1 guide to everything to do with brewing. Number 11, nobody should really be without this. This is written by the chap who runs Beer UK, Brew UK, Beer UK. And it's known very much as the Bible. It's beautifully written, nicely illustrated, very thoughtful, but most people buy it for the recipes. There's some wonderful recipes in there. So that's Homebrew Beer, Greg Hughes. Number 10. And this is a strange one. I only stumbled across this one by accident. It's Craft Brew. Again, the beauty of this is it has some really interesting and wonderful recipes going through just about every single style. So we have Craft Brew. So in at 9, we have the Homebrew Recipe Bible, which is different from number 11. Number 9 calls itself the Bible. It's actually pretty good. You'll get the first 6 books are about brewing, the second 6 aren't. It's actually got, and the reason I'm including this is because everybody knows about this. Not everybody will know about this. And again, it's got some lovely, interesting and different recipes. The other thing I really like about this is it lays flat easily. Little things. So there we have the Homebrew Recipe Bible. Worth a punt, link underneath. No beer enthusiast or brewer, I should say, should be without this incredible tome. I've done several from here, and it's got just some absolutely bonkers recipes. This is one of my favourite breweries in America, Allagash. I've got several, obviously, but I mean, to have these recipes laid out like this. They've also got recipes from UK brewers, Australian brewers. Just, yeah, it is absolutely just bonkers. Lovely book to have. Next, brewing porters and stouts. The reason I like this is because this is a style which is very often overlooked. This is a history book and a recipe book, and just one of those little factoid type books, which is just lovely. Hasn't got many pretty pictures as such, but it's illustrated thoughtfully. And again, there's some very rare and beautiful recipes tied up in this book. Right, so that is our first 6. The second 6 aren't necessarily about the process of brewing. The second 6 are more about the beers. And at number 6, this from Jeff Sparrow is the ultimate book about wild brews, what we might call spontaneously fermented, naturally fermented. Brews, essentially, it says in the Belgian tradition, but goes a little bit beyond that as well. So it will cover the lambics, it will cover some of the farmhouses. From my point of view, this is the best introduction to sour beers. It's very, very well written. Obviously, as you'd expect, it's got a nice, accessible, scientific side to it, which, as people will know, my background's in science. So that's why I stumbled upon and fell in love with wild brews. At number 5, this is my favourite, I think, book to follow on from wild brews. This is about, and now the people who've really taken sour beers to an art form beyond just having a cool ship are the Americans. We're catching up. We've got people like Crossover Blendery, and I've got a cool ship downstairs, proper copper, traditional made cool ship. It's in one of my videos. I'll be doing another lambic at Christmas and New Year. This is the book that actually goes into and looks at American sour beers. It's got lots of references to people like Will Mayers from Cambridge Brewing Company in Boston, Massachusetts, and Vinnie Chiuso from Russian River. Also, you all of the great American experimenters are covered in here. This is an education in its own right. It takes the idea of the lambics and the goses and extrapolates onto things like the Solera that Will Mayers at CBC has. This is a superb addition to anyone's bookshelf who might be interested in sour beers. Next, following from there, this was one of the most interesting books I picked up this year. And I know lots of people are now discovering this, including Get Her Brewed, who are opening their own brewery in Northern Ireland, and they've got a couple of photos, so they'll be looking at aging in wood. Again, this has got a lot of contributions from Will Mayers, and it introduces more than just aging in wood. Most people will think, oh, you just chuck some beer in some wooden casks and it adds a little bit of oaky flavour to it. Far, far beyond that. Wood and Beer, a brewer's guide, really is a serious analysis, accessible analysis into the use of wood in beers. Now my top 3. This is my Christmas top 3. At number 3, Tasting Beer. This, I mean, you should buy this just for the name of the author. Randy Mosher's Tasting Beer is more than about tasting beer. This covers every beer style you will ever come across. It goes into the history of that style, it goes into the provenance of that style, it goes into the environmental influences that create that style. So it's a history lesson. It's so beautifully illustrated. It really absolutely will blow you away. It covers everything you'll ever need to know ever about beer. So it's Randy Mosher's Tasting Beer. At number 2, we haven't got a number 2. This was terrible for me. So we skipped number 2. We got 2 number 1s. 2, yeah, you know what I mean. And the 2 number 1s if there was going to be a number 2, it's a tough call, really, really tough call. If I had to call it, this would possibly be at number 2, but I want to have dual number 1s. So I'm going to lay them out together. This, Johnny Garrett, some might know from the Craft Beer channel on YouTube. Johnny and Brad have built that channel over the past 10 odd years. It is, it's a wonderful encyclopedic resource. This is Johnny's new book, A Year in Beer. And it goes through every season and, in a sense, pretty much every style that you're likely to encounter. It's just lovely. It is a truly beautiful, well written, thoughtful, lovely book, and he covers some stuff. Why did I've bookmarked certain? Oh yeah, he covers all sorts of stuff. He goes into sort of like apples and yeah, everything in there. A Year in Beer. I'll come back to that in greater depth. These 2 books I'm going to be doing together, but I'll start with that, and then the final book I'm going to recommend to you. It doesn't look. It does. Yeah. Come on. Sorry, Johnny. I'm sticking you on top of Randy Mosher. Pete Brown. If you haven't come across Pete Brown, you should. Pete Brown is the most amazing beer historian. Well, he's a historian, but he writes an awful lot about beer. He's humorous. He's just everything about the way he writes is wonderful. Hops and Glory. Well, I mean, it kind of like gives you a bit of a giveaway, one man's search for the beer that built the British Empire. We're talking about IPA India Pale Ale. No spoilers in here, but this is Pete Brown's account of. He came up with an idea. He was stuck for an idea of something to write about. He came up with an idea of taking a pale ale to India to reproduce that journey of the original taking pale ales to India and why. But this goes far, far beyond there. This is truly an education in so many different senses. This is both funny, sad, educational, historical. It's an absolute gem of a book. And it hasn't got lots of pretty pictures. But I defy anyone to read this book and not enjoy it. This book will introduce you to barry. Those who watch my channel will realise that we bought a barry back. We bought a sack of malt back on the boat to Sheffield after our 2021 around the country cruise on the narrowboat. And we called the sack of malt barry. Read this book, you'll find out why. You'll also find out a little bit more about narrowboats, and you'll find out about one of my favourite places in the Canary Islands, El Mednor. Not going to give you any more spoilers for this, but this book, above any other, I would recommend to you. Obviously, joint first with Johnny Garrett's. So that's my 12 beer books of Christmas. I'll be going into them in greater depth on the 12 days leading up to Christmas. I'll probably do these over the 2 days, I don't know, because there's so much in them that it's worth looking at. So there we have. I'll put the links below. Tomorrow I'm going to do a video about the books that very, very nearly missed out being in the 12 books of Christmas. It was virtually impossible to choose from the dozens and dozens of books I've got, but these are the ones that I thought. So starting with books which are great for people interested in brewing, or if you've got someone who's just wanting to get into brewing, then the first 6, the second 6 is for absolutely everybody. Fascinating books. Links below. If there's any that you think should be added to this list, feel free to add them in the comments. Absolutely fine to do so. I'd welcome other people's ideas of what might be their own 12 beer books of Christmas. But for now, this is mine. I'll see you for the first one on the lead up to Christmas, on the 12th day before Christmas. As always, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, it'd be lovely to have you. If you do the thumbs up thing, it tells YouTube's algorithm things that it might be worth suggesting this video to other people. Until next time, you know the score. Whatever you're doing, do it safely. And cheers. The 12 beer books of Christmas.